streaming.
Let's get funky.
It's time for Clubhouse Chatter. Here's Norm Ordez.
All right, thank you, Brian, and thanks for watching and listening. In our final show of the day today, our guest is the one, the only, the Penguin, Mr. Ron Cey. Ron, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
And so, first of all, I would like for you to talk about playing at Washington State for Bobo Brayton and what that experience was like.
Well, it was really a very interesting and yet intense point in my life. I had an opportunity to sign and play professionally, and I had a baseball scholarship to Washington State, and we also had the Vietnam War. And my childhood dream was to become a major league player, and I felt that I probably would be better served to go to school for a couple of years. The draft laws were different back then. You could sign after your sophomore year back in the 60s if you did not go to junior college. And so we only had freshman eligibility then, so we had freshman sports, as did the Pac-8 back then. And so my first year of varsity baseball was my sophomore year. And we were only able to play 38 games, and I had to make the most of it. But that was when my next opportunity came up, and signed in June of 1968 with the Dodgers, and went back to school at the end of that couple of months because we had to have student deferments back then to stay out of the classification of 1A and going on to Vietnam.
And Bobo Brayton, of course, he gave you the nickname the Penguin because of the way you ran, correct?
Well, as the story goes, yeah. But Bobo was instrumental in getting me to go to Washington State. I'd taken a visit there with a few high school friends, and also had a number of players that I played against as a kid and in high school and in the summer that were also going to Washington State, and we had an outstanding team that was as high ranked as number 8 in the country at that point in time.
What would you say was the highlight of your career?
The highlight of my career? That's easy, winning the World Championship.
And you were the MVP of that World Series, correct?
Yes, I was.
And that was against the New York Yankees.
Yes, it was.
And what memories of that do you have?
Lots. We had battled the Yankees previously in the World Series. The longest running and most successful infield in Major League history was coming to an end. It would be the last game that the fabled infield would play together, Game 6 of the 1981 World Series. And ironically, the first 4 hitters in the lineup that night were the infielders, Oaks, Russell, Garvey, and myself. And we were able to culminate many years of hard work and bring the World Series championship back to Los Angeles with the Dodgers. And it was also, as I mentioned, the end of the infield. Davey Lopes was moving on to Oakland, I believe, and Steve Sachs took over at second base.
Man, that was pretty sweet little infield. Speaking of infield, what is your take on the new slide rule?
Well, the new slide rule, you mean from last year as far as home plate is concerned?
Yeah, going into like second base.
Oh, the Utley rule.
The Utley rule, yes.
Yeah, well, yeah, I really haven't taken an extensive look at it, but obviously there was room for concern there, and I think they probably did what they needed to do. How well it works from that point on is up to interpretation.
When you were playing in the major leagues or even in the minor leagues, did you have a favorite place to play? Was there a favorite ballpark for you?
I mean, look, we were assigned classifications to play. we went through all the different leagues. Played in the California State League, the Texas League, the Pacific Coast League. It was always fun going to Hawaii for a week to play. I mean, why wouldn't it be? For cost reasons, that's why we spent a week there.
Right.
You can't go back and forth. It's not cost effective, but it was fun. And there was lots of places that were fun to play, and we got to go. Phoenix was a AAA town back then.
Right.
Salt Lake City, but I was a well-traveled player throughout the minor leagues and played winter ball in Puerto Rico for Frank Robinson. Won a championship there. Played in the Caribbean World Series in Caracas. So well-traveled player.
I know baseball's baseball for the most part, but how different was it playing in Puerto Rico and then playing in the Caribbean World Series? I mean, different from playing ball here in the States?
The fans are absolutely crazy. The Hispanic fans are absolutely out of their mind. We shared the stadium in San Juan with San Juan. I played for Santurce. And so we had the first base dugout, and San Juan had the third base dugout, and there was a game every night because one team would be home and the other would be on the road. But there was a partition that went straight down the middle of the stadium behind home plate and went all the way to the top, up to the press box. And it was a fence, and the fans that sat along that divide would exchange bets literally on every pitch. And they'd be jumping up and down on your dugout, and we just had a great time. We had great fans, and it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it very much.
So I want to get your take on playing in the Northwest League a little bit. You played in Tri-Cities in 1968. So, of course, here in Oregon, we are Northwest League territory with Salem Kaiser Volcanoes and the Hillsboro Hops. What do you remember about playing in the Northwest League?
Long bus rides.
Yeah.
We had a trip from Lewiston, Idaho, to Medford, Oregon. And if you're familiar with the area, you go along the Washington-Oregon border. That's the Columbia River. And that's a long stretch. And then you go all the way across that to Portland, and then you jump straight down and go to the bottom of the state in Medford, and that was like a 15-hour bus ride. And those weren't the luxury buses back then either.
Right.
Those were little pedal jumpers.
A little bit different now than what it was, definitely. And so I also want to talk about baseball cards. And so what do you remember about your very first baseball card, and what was that like being on a baseball card for the first time?
Well, I mean, I really didn't sign up for, all of the stuff that went along with it, which is, baseball cards and signing autographs and being essentially a celebrity for the rest of your life. It went with the territory, but it wasn't the reason that I got involved. I just loved and wanted to play baseball, and felt like it would be absolute gas to be able to play something I love to do every day, and lasted a long time.
And one final question.
Immature, because my in-laws were actually on a golf course with Cy Berger, and Cy Berger ran tops at that point in time.
Okay.
And, Cy Berger became friends, and I think my mother-in-law talked Cy into getting a card out maybe a little bit early, but big thrill nonetheless. Just another thing that you go through on the way to becoming a major league player, and I thought it was a big thrill.
So, in one final question, it's a two-part question. What was the best advice that anybody had given you during your career, and what advice would you give to the younger players today?
I'm not so sure if it just comes to one thing. I just think that, you have to have a lot of confidence in yourself. There's going to be plenty of people, regardless of what kind of a player that you might think you are, that you're not going to have hoops to jump through and hurdles to pass over, and a lot of things that are going to be negative. There's always going to be somebody that's going to say, because the odds are so incredibly not in your favor. Probably not much different today. But 97% of the kids that are drafted each and every June fail. And
right.
If you think that it gets any better when you become a major leaguer, it's not. It's really in a very small percentile. The number of people who can walk away from baseball and say that they had a lifetime batting average of 300 represent 1%. The people who are in the Hall of Fame are the 1%. That means there's a whole lot of really outstanding players that aren't in that 1 percentile. And there's a lot of things that you have to overcome. You have to be very strong. You have to be very talented. And if you're going to have any longevity in this game, you better figure it out.
Well, thank you for taking time today and coming on the show. I know growing up as a young baseball fan, I grew up a Braves and a Dodgers fan. And you were part of that Dodgers team. And loved watching you play. And to this day, for me, Dodger Stadium is the place to watch a game. It is my favorite place. And once again, thank you for coming on the show today, Ron.
Norm, thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, once again, Mr. Ron Cey. Man, so I'm looking at the Spokane Indians. Well, they were the Spokane Indians. 1971, they were Pacific Coast League team back then. So they went 69 and 76. Their manager was Tommy Lasorda. And so here are some of the players on that roster. So pitcher Doyle Alexander. You remember Doyle, Brian? Ron Cey. Joe Ferguson, who was a catcher. Charlie Huff.
Wow.
Davey Lopes. Tom Paciorek, Doug Rauh, pitcher Doug Rauh, Bobby Valentine,
Jeez.
Hoyt Wilhelm. At 48 years old, Hoyt was a part of that team. Man. And Ron Cey hit 32 home runs, 123 RBIs, and batted .328 that season.
Not a bad year. At all. It's pretty awesome.
So what do you remember about Ron? We were chatting before the show, and you were telling me that he was your
Second favorite third baseman, because I was a Yankees fan. Greg Nettles, he was the man. That's who my favorite third baseman was. But you got to see these guys play so often at that age. You got to see the World Series, the playoff games, pretty much is what you saw, and they were always playing the Yankees and the Dodgers. And so they're always playing each other, and I learned and admired. Hey, Ron Cey is a great third baseman.
He was a great third baseman, and
so Greg Nettles, and that was my spot. So I kind of clicked with those two guys, and so it was great to hear that you actually going to have Ron on this morning. So kind of a little thrill for me as well.
So growing up in Idaho. Mm-hmm. In the late 70s, early 80s, mid 80s, WTBS was pretty much all we had. Right. We got WGN, but it was like 2 or 3 years after TBS. Right. So you became a Braves fan. But it was back when the Atlanta Braves was in the National League West with the Dodgers. And so the Dodgers and the Braves were the rivalry then. And so I remember, being a Dodgers fan, and I remember that 81 World Series, when they beat the Yankees, and that infield, arguably has to be one of the best ever to play the game.
I would say probably the best.
How can you, can you argue? I don't think you necessarily can argue that.
Yeah.
Ron Cey, Dave Lopes, Garvey. Holy cow.
Crazy. Good team, and the only reason they didn't win more because the Yankees.
That is true.
So
Yankees doing the Yankee thing.
That's right.
And you know what? And that's okay.
That's right.
That's okay. And so hopefully the Dodgers get back. Get back to the glory years. It's kind of hard for me to say that because being a Giants fan, but It's a clubhouse thing. It's what the Giants have. It's an even year. So, of course, we could all, count it in, World Series champions right there, San Francisco. I'm not going to make any predictions. It's too early.
I'm not either. Not at all. So
I'm just excited for baseball, and I've been watching some of the spring training games, and, man, it's going to be an exciting year. And so once again, sorry for not having Freddie Coleman on. Freddie was supposed to come on the show, so not exactly, he had a special assignment this morning. With that said,
things happen.
Peyton Manning, it is rumored that Peyton Manning will retire tomorrow. Has a press conference.
Freddie Coleman has some type of connection to Denver, I believe. Seriously.
I can't say.
I'm just okay. Well, I may be smarter than one thinks.
But getting away from baseball for a second, Peyton Manning, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, without a doubt. Brian.
Sorry, I was thinking 3 steps ahead. I just already finished this conversation. I was on to the next thing. Yes, Peyton Manning is. You've got to rank him up there with 3 Super Bowls now.
Yeah,
and I think he's one of the greatest. I think he's proven that with 2 different teams, especially with the injuries he's had, come back and lead this Denver team to a Super Bowl. I would say, yeah. And the numbers say the same thing.
And set aside the stuff that is going on kind of off to the side with him a little bit, with that whole deal when he was at Tennessee and the whole PED deal. He's been a class act.
He has. I think, we'll hear more about this, of course, whatever happened. Of course, there are only allegations at this point until they're proven. Then we deal with it. But, yeah, he has been a class act in and out, and that's what everyone said throughout his whole career.
So, Peyton Manning, thank you for your time, man. It was fun watching him. One of the legends scheduled to make an announcement tomorrow that he's retiring from football. And, I kind of hate to see him go. I mean, I understand it's time, but what he has done for the Colts and the Broncos of late, winning the Super Bowl, I would agree it's time for him to go out.
Next man up. There's always somebody on the scene, You look at it, we've had players come around and step up. We think, oh, man, the end of an era, it's all gone. 2 years later, we have somebody else filling his spot. And, whether it's, Tom Brady, who's been filling it, before and continues to, or it's some guy out of, maybe it's Vernon Adams. Who knows? I'm not saying he's going to be the one, but somebody will step up.
You never know.
That's right.
So once again, that is the man, the myth, and the legend, producer Brian Erickson, and does a great job with the show every week. I'm Norm, and we are sponsored by baseballisms.com. If you like my hat, you could buy it at baseballisms.com. Also, sponsored by baseballdudes.com. To be the best, you must train like the best. Chris Gazelle up there in Vancouver, Washington. Base by Pros, building an athlete sports education. Mitch Canham up there in Washington. Mitch should be getting ready to head to spring training here soon. So, Mitch, thank you. Mark Canham, his dad, of course. MDM Design does our shirts for Clubhouse Chatter, and which are for sale, by the way. If you would be interested in buying them, you can email me. We stream live at yamhilltoday.com, and we're always looking for sponsors. And so you could email me, normbo18@gmail.com. Just email me, period. And see if anybody is out there is listening. And we are on Twitter, Clubhouse Chatter 1T, Facebook, Clubhouse Chatter, YouTube, Clubhouse Chatter. We're also on Major League Baseball, MLB.com blogs, Clubhouse Chatter. Once again, I'm Norm. That's Brian. We will be back next week with some more shows, and we're also lining up a couple of other things that we're talking about doing. And
the great summer road trip.
Taking the show out on the road, and also doing an all sports deal with Yamhill Sports today. And so we'll see. So once again, year anniversary of my dad passing away, moving on. Dad, I love you and miss you every day. And once again, thanks for watching.